I return to education very briefly. This has been a very big and important reform for the government, and it's been a huge privilege to be given carriage over those reforms. So I do want to acknowledge, Julia, you giving me those responsibilities. And just think quickly about what we've done, and it's a reflection on the Federation. I mean, we've got a national curriculum for the first time. It might sound like it's a kind of a basic thing, but why did it take us until 2012 to get a national curriculum? We needed a national vision, we needed to set the standards of a curriculum as high as we could for every student, and then we needed to reach agreement with the states through the vexed processes of COAG et al. To make it happen. And now we've done it. We've got the best national curriculum in the world, and you can access it by hitting enter on your computer. It is a fabulous piece of work, and it's empowering students, it's empowering teachers Australia-wide. We also brought professional standards for teachers and principals in. Again, something really important to do. The Trades Training Centre program, which was already incepted in the former term, we maintained that as well. But most important of all, we responded to the first review into education school funding, in nearly 40 years, the Gonski Review, recommendations that bore down upon us and charged this parliament to respond, and all of us to respond. I mean, when Mr Gonski and his panel, which incidentally was, David Gonski be well known to many people here. I mean, he's an eminent Australian, a senior business figure in the Sydney business community, but also Australia-wide and regionally as well. And his panel said that education in our country shouldn't be, the quality of education shouldn't be the product of power or privilege or access to resources. I mean, that was the argument. Now, they didn't have to write anything else, of course they did, and that was the thing that we needed to act on, and I'm pleased that we did. This is a fair education funding system. It's one that has equity and excellence at its heart, and it's one that if we can set aside some of the rancour and some of the partisanship that regrettably infects some of our national body politic, then it will deliver for students from now and into the future. And when I say deliver, I do mean deliver, because it provides certainty and it's focused on lifting those kids that have got disadvantage and helping them learn better. And providing certainty through the funding appropriations, as everybody in this house, that's the trick. Because half of what we do here is fix up decisions that other people have made. And they may have been good decisions, they may not have been, but we've got to fix them up, and they don't last long enough. It's not good enough for the parliament to sit in here and give someone a program that lasts 6 or 12 months. What good is it? After 9 months, they've got to go and apply for the money again. They've got to, the person who is working has to sit and take retirement. We have to provide certainty, and there's nothing more important that we can do than provide the certainty of our teachers and our parents that those resources will be there helping them every step of the way. You watch schools come to life when they have those resources, when principals have those sovereignty, and when they're focusing on doing the things that really count. And I was extremely pleased and proud that we were able to see the Australian Education Bill pass the Parliament at about 1:10 yesterday. I'll conclude now because I've taken your indulgence, colleagues and the members in the public who are kindly listening for too long. I just want to speak about 3 things overall. It's just a reflection from me as I've come into this place. The first is that I took Australian democracy so seriously that I decided to become a member for Parliament, and then I was privileged enough to become a minister and a cabinet minister for 2 terms of government. And I judge that, from my perspective, to be an incredible opportunity, but also a reflection of how important I think this place is. Yes, we do have the debates. Yes, there's lots to carry on, and frankly, there are too many people in here who've spent their lives doing that, and need sometimes to take a big deep breath and set back and work out what the common interest is. And I know the member for Lynn is here, and thanks very much, Rob Oakeshott, for your contributions. But I have a faith and a confidence in democracy, and it's born of the fact that we do live in a truly successful, prosperous and very engaging and enlarging nation. And it's one where our opportunities to be a positive force in our region, to really lift up what our citizens can become in the future, there are very few limits for us here. And I heard the Prime Minister speak about that today, building it on, and that's absolutely right, we've got to build it on. But in order to have that faith and confidence in democracy, we have to understand it a bit. So I'm pleased that in the national curriculum we will have civics and citizenship. It's essential that young people understand how this system works to some extent, that they don't simply get their information from grabs on telly or a bit of online or a bit of blogging or whatever it might be, because that's not really what's happening here. Some serious things happen here. Sometimes we have our light-hearted moments, but ultimately, if it doesn't happen here effectively and with integrity, then the rest of the democracy around us will fall, and we can't afford to have that happen. The second thing I want to address, and may surprise some of you, is I want to address our relationships in the region, but particularly with China. I consider this to be a matter of significant national importance for us as a nation. We're going through a historic sea change. We saw that sea change in the period of the late 19th century into the 20th century, crossed into the World War II period where we turned around and looked to the United States for some protection and security. But our region's now totally transformed, and quite often when I do forums, education forums, I get people to put up their hands and say, well, what was it like for you 50 years ago? What were the big countries? The big countries were America, the United Kingdom, and the big countries now are China and India. And of those, China, and there are others here who know this well, very important. And I view with some concern a sentiment that I've seen expressed, sometimes in the business community and sometimes further afield, that on the basis of our trading engagement with China, we ought to in some ways forgive what we can properly put as a national interest view and as an international view about governance, about freedom, about human rights, and about appropriate conduct in international relations. It's an important relationship. It's one that must be conducted in a constructive fashion, and I know that it is. But it's also one where we need to be very clear about the nature of that relationship. And I think we need to think about it and talk about it a great deal. Second thing I want to talk about is sustainability. There's one, I'm now going to cavil or take exception with one thing that I hear in here from right across the Parliament. And that is that it's only about economic growth. Well, it's not only about economic growth. I think a lot of us know that. But it's important for us to reframe what our task is here. Because if the task of the Parliament, which doesn't actually have its hands on that many levers, I mean, we're not setting interest rates here, probably a good thing, but if the task of the Parliament is to consider what Australia will be like in 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 years' time, and we can no more have these population boosters saying that we should have a population of 50 or 60 million people than we can literally frisbee ourselves to the moon until we have got sustainable planning, sustainability built into our economic systems. It's not about economic growth, it's about the quality of growth. Of course, employment and meaningful livelihood is absolutely essential to that, but you're ultimately not going to have meaningful livelihood unless you've got the basic provisions that the ecosystem provides for us in place as well. And that is a challenge. It's a challenge for governments, a challenge for the opposition. And I've got to say, I don't want to be rancorous myself here, but I don't hold much confidence from what I'm hearing from the Leader of the Opposition that he recognises the nature of that challenge. The next thing to say is that our future is born on 3 or 4 things. It's not about our natural resources, even though we've got them. It's about our people resources. Well, they're the most important resource a country has. I mean, you know, take a quick look. Countries can have pretty much equivalent numbers of natural resources. Why do some do well and others not do so well at all? It's generally 2 or 3 answers to that. One is the education capacity of their citizens. Another one is the rigour, the robustness of their governance arrangements. Separation of powers, rule of law, respect of property rights. These things underpin successful nations, and there's one final thing that lies underneath that as well: imagination and innovation. If you get those things in place, Australia will be an incredibly important, wonderful place to live in and an important country and a successful country in the 21st century. But if we don't get those things in place, then life will be much tougher for us, for our successors and for those who sit in this chamber after I've long gone. Speaker, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to put on record some of my thoughts. I didn't have too much time to prepare for this, I must confess that may have been obvious to you. But I do want to say that I've appreciated the opportunity to serve with those of you who are my colleagues on this side of the House. I've very much appreciated the support that I have from my staff who are sitting over there in the advisors box, and I can't even tell you, if I look across there and talk too much longer, you know what will happen. From my friends and family, and also from many in the community who've provided support to me over time as well, my deep gratitude. And I wish all of you in this House well in the future. Thanks very much.